Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to learn how to make baklava from scratch. I'm super excited to share this video. So for those who don't know, baklava is a baked layer pastry made from filo pastry, and it's filled with chopped nuts and drenched in syrup or honey. This was such a unique experience that we got to do through Airbnb experiences, where we got to go to a local Turkish home and learn to make everything from scratch, including the dough, all the way to having it fresh out of the oven. So stay tuned for all of the steps and the whole recipe. In the meantime, I wanted to show you how we got from Karakoy, which is on the European side of Istanbul, to Kadıköy, where we had the Airbnb experience, and Kadıköy is on the Asian side of Istanbul. So they are connected by public transport, and the way we decided to get there was the 20-minute ferry ride. I've left some important information below on how to get the Istanbulkart, which is the card that you'll need to take buses, trains, and ferries in Istanbul. I highly recommend it. It's just doing a few extra more steps to comply with the current regulations so that you can get this card activated, but it's totally worth it, and it's such a convenient and affordable way to get across Istanbul. So some of the first things we notice about the Asian side, particularly in Kadıköy, is that the streets are a lot wider and flatter. This side is probably a really good choice if you want to avoid the uphill, downhill, and there's a fresh market in Kadıköy. So if it were us coming back to Istanbul for a second time around, we would probably stay in Kadıköy. We found it a little bit more relaxing, and also the prices were, I would say, about 10 to 15% cheaper on this side. I've recently published a Google list of all of the places we went to Istanbul, and most of the places have a few little notes, some tips and recommendations. So make sure you check the link in the description box so you can access that Google map next time you're in Turkey. So I'd like to introduce you to Fatima. She was so cool, so welcoming. Her and her husband made us some snacks, and as we settled in, she started grabbing all of the ingredients, and she was like, don't worry, there's a lot of work coming up, so don't worry, I'm gonna mix the ingredients first and then we'll all get rolling. Please make sure to check out her channel. I've linked it in the description below, and I also will provide the whole recipe down there. So without any further ado, let's get going. Andrea and I love baking bread. We actually have one baking video on this channel that I will link if you click here. And it became a Sunday tradition for us in New York. So we used to bake every single Sunday. We had a little starter, and we used to experiment and just try to make different loaves of sourdough bread. So to get our hands dirty again like this was so exciting, to feel dough, to feel flour and water coming together. I know that sounds so weird, but for us it felt so nostalgic and so homely, so we were so excited to do this. As we let the dough to rest, we made the syrup, and we also roughly chopped some nuts. So roughly chopped because you want those textural bits coming through. Fatima used the best ingredients, including clarified butter called ghee, and the reason for this is because it has a higher temperature so that it doesn't burn when it's cooking in the oven. The clarified butter was then used as a non-stick layer, and then we started dividing the dough. So we divided it into 3 equal parts for the 3 of us to start rolling, and each of us had 15 little balls of dough, which altogether made up the 45 layers for this baklava. Once you've created all of your little dough balls, the next step is to start rolling them out. So we rolled them out to the size of a very small plate, and as soon as we had 5 layers, we'd stack them together and keep rolling them. And the idea is as you roll out the 5 together, it becomes thinner, but before they get to the size of the filo pastry pan, we also wanted to make sure that each layer didn't just become part of one big thing. So to separate them, we would add a little bit of cornstarch to ensure that separation. So it does take a while to get those 5 layers rolled up into this thin sheet that fits the pan, but because we divided the labor up, that meant that each person only had to do 3 big sheets, right? Because 3 times 5 is 15, 15 times 3 is 45. Okay, we all get the maths. After each layer, you kind of just sprinkle the nuts on top, be generous about them, and then just keep rolling, stacking it all up. What Fatima taught us was that if we wanted more crispiness, once you roll it out, you can start pulling some of those layers apart. And this is doable because of that cornstarch that we sprinkled on earlier. And this is going to give you those crispy layers on top. So that's how we finished the baklava. And then after this, we moved on to cutting.
Oh, so it's cut before it bakes.
After we did that beautiful star cut pattern, we poured ghee into every single crevice, everywhere. We drenched it. It is the way that this is going to get puffy and crispy, so don't be shy. Just pour it all in. So we preheated the oven earlier and it baked for about 50 minutes. Oh my goodness, look at that. It baked for about 50 minutes at 180 Celsius or 356 Fahrenheit. And look at those puffed up layers. Oh, it looks so good. I actually miss it so much. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we made a lovely Turkish coffee to go along with the baklava, of course. And then we checked on that syrup to make sure it was ready. And the fun part begins. So drenching the whole thing in this syrup, and I mean drenching it. It started sizzling because it was still so hot, and that sound was so alluring. And then we literally just started eating it. We just couldn't wait. And what really happens is that the syrup over time gets soaked up. So at the beginning, even though it was a little bit soggy, by the time we had finished like our first or second serving of baklava, the sugar syrup had actually soaked up. So as you can imagine, if you wait for a couple of hours, you'll actually have a really, really stable dessert that's not swimming in liquid or anything. We did the final touches, sprinkled some pistachios on top to make the whole thing pop, which I thought was really, really pretty. And then we just got straight into cutting it. We couldn't wait, like I said earlier. So yeah, you'll see here that it's still pretty, I guess, wet for lack of a better term. But like I said, if you just let it all soak up, it will not be dripping or anything. Despite it being wet because of the syrup, it was still super crunchy, and we've never tasted anything like this. The baklava that you get in the shops is so delicious, but it's more tacky and it can be overly sweet. This was a baklava that we could just have like 10 slices easy, just because it was super light. It was more generous on the nuts, which kind of made it healthy maybe, and it was Just looking at this makes me really miss it. I'm going to continue salivating as I work on next week's video, which is all about the street food in Istanbul and other delicious foods that we've had. So please like this video, subscribe, and we'll see you very, very soon. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.
Can you squeeze the lemon for me already?